Hi, I'm Tom Stephenson and welcome to Microsoft Project for Beginners. I'm a professor of construction management and I've taught students and professionals alike for many years on this particular software, so I kind of know a lot of the ins and outs and shortcuts and problem areas. As I said, this is lesson 5. We've got previous videos that you can go back to. I'll put links in the show description. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can check under the playlists and you'll see I've got different playlists on Microsoft Project as well as a whole host of videos on construction project management. So please help join the community and click the notifications icon as well, the likes if you like, and any comments or questions that you may have. It gives me ideas for future videos. Okay, so let's get started. I've tried to keep this very basic, so I just got my screen and I've got a summary task, task 1 to task 7, and finish, and just some easy durations in here from the previous video that I did. And I put in a bunch of predecessors. So, if you want to just freeze that and copy it on your own and try to follow along, that's good. Or if you just want to try to pick up on certain things that you're trying to figure out right now, that's also fine. So that's two ways that you can kind of follow along or learn from this. I've also assigned some resources. So I'll go over how I created those resources and how I assigned them. And then I'm also going to take a look at our cost tables and our resource usage table as well. So we're going to be flipping between a few different screens, and that's part of the learning process with Microsoft Project. Right now, we are in the entry screen. I usually click this square icon box here, right click, you can see entry. You can see a series of other tables like the cost table. Like if I click on that, we can see what our total costs are. We can see there's baseline and variance. We'll get into that in a later video, but the baseline is when you've finished entering all the information you want and you want the project to remember it. And it takes a snapshot of it. And then when you change stuff, it'll show you variances. Right now, it doesn't show anything properly because we haven't set the baseline yet because we're not finished setting this up. All right, so this is the cost screen, and you can see actually a lot of bits of information here. You can pull this to the side. When you start updating, you can see what actuals have occurred in the sense of cost and remaining. There is a lot of things that you can do with Microsoft Project with regards to cost. And if you put the information in right to begin with, then it makes it a lot more worth your while because the data will be very good. You can produce cash flow reports that'll show how the money is going out of the project. You can do all kinds of different analysis to determine where you're losing money when you start updating the project and so on and so forth. So it's really, really helpful for cost control and project monitoring as well. All right, so we've got the cost screen. Now these are the two areas where I switch between tables, the square icon box here and right clicking, and there's the series of lists. The other area is sliding to the left, which we'll use a lot today, and you right click your mouse and you see that list of tables or sheets, as Microsoft Project gives them different names in here, that you can go to. You could also go up here and click on that, but that only works if you're in the task tab. So I usually just slide across and just click on whatever it is I'm after. Right now I want to go to the resource sheet, and so I'm in the resource sheet. So in my previous video, I set this up. I basically entered these resources. If you haven't done that, you can just do that in a resource sheet, your resource sheet if you like, and you just enter these. Now Microsoft Project gives you 3 choices: work, material, and cost. And again, I go into this in more detail in my previous video, which I'll have a link to in the description below. So you can always go to that if you want to see more details. But you have 3 choices. So I've picked all 3 in these ones. People that work for me, their work. If I want to monitor by the hour, their work. They're getting paid $100 an hour, these 2, and the labor is getting paid $80 an hour. And it's a burden rate, so it includes things like government fees and holiday pay and things like that. Okay, so we've got material and it says square foot. I typed in square foot. I could have put in square meter. I could have put in, cubic meter, whatever it is, linear feet. It's something that you're measuring. So construction wise, that happens fairly frequently. It could be cubic meters of concrete. And I put a cost associated with that. So I've seen it's drywall that I'm monitoring here, that I've said 15 cents a square foot. So that's about $16 a sheet. You know, it just depends. Prices have been going crazy lately, so I'm not exactly sure how close that is, but you'd want to look at what that is and have it represent it. We then have subs, and so that's trade partners or subcontractors that or consultants that you may be hiring on contract to do work for you, and so that's what I put for them. Those ones, you'll notice that where it says material, I can't type anything in there. So whatever you choose will limit or allow you to do certain things. Because I picked material, I could put square feet in there. Because I put work, I can't put anything in this box. So if you ever find that it doesn't let you enter something, think, oh, did I put the right type? And come back here and change the type, and that should help you out. I found people over the years get really frustrated. It won't allow me to change what's on. It could take them hours to figure it out, literally. So that's just basically making sure that you've assigned the right type for how you want to add costs. So for like a drywall sub, if I've got a contract with them and say it's for $40,000 for this project, maybe at the end of when they drywall the first side, I want to pay them $10,000. So I put that amount when I intend to pay them. This, when they work for me, well, I probably want to pay them on an ongoing basis, maybe once every 2 weeks. You know how you get your regular pay? Likely the best in that case would be accrue at, prorated. I'm going to pay them as they're doing the work. So it doesn't do it like, you know, every hour I'm paying them, but it does do it prorated, would be like every 2 weeks. That would make a lot of sense. For example, if I have a site super and I sign them to the whole project and I put at the start, then that would mean I'm paying them the whole amount at the start. That wouldn't make any sense. For a drywall sub, it might make sense. They install the first side of the drywall, I pay them $10,000. They install the second side of the drywall, I pay them another $10,000. They tape the drywall, I pay them $20,000. That might make sense. And then I would assign that as I assign these resources to those activities. So we have those particular amounts, and we can say how much of something we have. So if it's a person, like a site super or a single role, then 100%, that would be the maximum that you're going to say is available. You might even say 50% if that's the maximum you want to show that they're going to be on this project. But I'm going to leave those at 100% here, and you'll see why. And laborers, 400%. Well, that means I've got 4 laborers available. If I put 100%, I've got 1 laborer available. And what you want to do is put how many you have available so to flag it for you if you put more than you said you have available. That's called an over allocation, when you put more than you have available to an actual activity. Cost per use would be like every time I get I assign the drywall, I'm going to have to pay a $100 delivery fee. So then that I could put $100. Every time I assign it, there's going to be $100 added to it, plus 50 cents a square foot for however much I put. So that could be used for that and that purpose. Calendar, if it is down as work, I could have a specific calendar. Like if I knew the project manager was going to take the first 2 weeks of July off, and I could have a calendar created that shows they're not going to be around the first 2 weeks. So I can get really into the weeds, really detailed if I want to. All right, and I've done another video, previous video, so you can look in the description below on calendars and setting calendars for various resources and various types of things, holidays, etc. So I'm going to now slide to the left, and I'm going to go back to the Gantt chart. So I created this resource sheet. And then what I've done already here, so I'm in the cost screen, and that's, again, half the battle. I was in the cost screen, so it takes me back there. I'm going to click on the square icon box and go to entry. Now that I'm back in the entry view, so, you know, I went from the resource sheet up to the Gantt chart, right? And then I went into the square icon box up to the entry view. You just got to get used to those various screens. It takes a little while, and once you do, everything will be fine from that point. So you can see these resources, I've applied them already, right? I've applied them already. In the previous video, I did that. But let's just show you how we did that, and then we'll move on to a few new things that I wanted to show you. So we've got the resource tab. And the way I usually like to assign resources is here. I bring up this assign resources box. You know, you can click on this and it'll give you a pull down menu and you can select resources, but you can't get into details. You can just only really assign them. You can't really assign costs in that screen. I like to be able to assign everything together, and I can usually do that over here. So in this assign resources box, you'll see that the list of resources that I created in the resource sheet, they're here. And I could, from this point on, they're already assigned, whether a material or cost, I could assign them. So what I did on the summary task, this one I called summary task, just very simple naming. You might call it building substructure or whatever your project element name is, because you can do all that work breakdown structure that I've talked about in, I think, video 1 or 2, or lesson 1 and 2 in this series. So you can see that you've got the project manager. I assign them 50% to the project, right? And so 50% means that they're going to be there 13 days, half the time, right? So 13 days times 8, right? So that would be 80. That'd be 104 hours in total. 8 hours a day, 13 days, 104 hours. They're getting paid $100 an hour. 104 times 100, that gives you 10,400. So that's where that's coming from in that particular case. Now the site super is going to be there all 26 days, and they're 100% of the time. So that's going to give you 20,800, double that amount, right? So 26 times 8 times $100, right? So that's going to be $208 times 208 hours times $100. So that's where that comes from. So whatever I assign, that's what it's going to tell me. Now let's say I wanted to assign one laborer to the whole project. They're going to be there the whole time, right? I could then put in here 100%, right? So I could click there, say 100%. And now I've got that one laborer 100% of the time there. And it's going to be, from that point of view, $16,640 because they're getting paid, I think, $80 an hour. So it's a little bit less than the site super. And they're there the same amount of time. But at $80, it'll be a little bit less money, right? So it'll be that same amount of 26 days times 8 times the $100 an hour. Now, you notice that when I assigned that, though, it gave me a whole bunch of over-allocations here. So that's that over-allocation that I was talking about. If you hover over there, this task has over-allocated resources. Right-click for options, right? And so what I would actually do is with that, I would actually go to, when I see that, I usually want to know, well, what's going on, right? And so what you could actually do where you've got an over-allocation, and I'll just close this resource box here, just so you can see what's going on. You can see I've got a resource assigned here, I got there. So these ones overlap each other. And I've also got this labor assigned to the whole project. So there, I've got one labor there all the time, and then I've got, differing amounts at different times. So if I slide to the left and I right click, you'll see that there is this resource graph. And if you go to resource graph, you can see laborers, and you can actually scroll along through the project and see where they're potentially over allocated. So you can see that at this point, on these particular days, they are going to be over allocated. So you've got more assigned than you have available. So that's giving you some pretty good information. You can see it says 500%. Well, what determined that 500% is too much? 400% means I've said I can only have 4 laborers. I only have 4 laborers that work for me. So if I over assign more than that, tell me, because I got to do something about it. So I could slide to the left and I can go down to my resource sheet, right? And it's over here that I said 400%. Now, if I thought and I have another one available, or I can get one part-time for something, I could change that and say, that's okay. We've got 5 that's available and it goes away. It won't be over-allocated anymore. If I'm going to leave this over-allocated for now at 400%, and it tells me that, yes, that's been too much. I've assigned too much. I could also go to my resource sheet, right-click, and I can go to where it says resource usage. So let's take a look at what that shows here. Under resource usage, it shows my actual resources, and it shows how many total hours I've assigned to that particular resource. And if it's over allocated, it tells me that it is over allocated. And so I can actually scroll along here, right? So I can, scroll along this project, and I can actually see what's assigned where, right? So I know this is assigned to the summary task, the whole project. So that's that 208 hours, right? And then I can see where I've got a number of the resources added. So I've got here, I've got 8, I've got 16, I've got 8, and I've got 8 again. So I can see I've got this over allocation going on here because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 assigned there. So in that case, this is where my problem actually is during this period of time. And so I could look at, well, I'm going to leave that one there for the whole project. I want continuity. I want there. So I got to really look at task 4, 5, and 6, and what can I do about that, right? So that's resource usage. I'm going to come back to that in a minute because it's a very useful table for showing you stuff like how the work is distributed and where it is and on which activities, who's working on which activities, and monitoring hourly rate, hourly time periods that people are working. So I'm going to slide to the left and I'm going to go back down and I'm going to go to my Gantt chart up here. So I'll go up to my Gantt chart. And I'm going to take a look at these activities here. And I'm going to say, you know what? Let's see. Do I really need 2 laborers here? This has got lots of float, right? I have 4 laborers available. I don't want to delay my project. So I got to think, well, if I take a laborer away from, well, if I took a laborer, assigned half a laborer here, this would take longer, right? If this one took longer, it's probably not such a big deal to me because it's not on the critical path. It's not in red. It's got float. I know it's got float because it's in blue. I could do a further zoom in because I'm not fully zoomed in here. So I could go to the bottom right of your screen. My picture might be hiding this, but bottom right of your screen, you see a plus and a minus. And you can see over here that this actually has, I see 5 days, 6 days of float there. And if your screen ever gets that you can't see everything, of course you can pull this off to the side, give you a little bit more space to see things. But what I often do is I double click on the time scale. These are just little tips. Double click on the time scale. It brings up, you can customize what this looks like, and format wise you can have 3 tiers instead of 2. I usually go with the standard. So it does get big though sometimes, and I usually like to bring that down to about 55%. I could type it in, but sometimes while I'm talking it's easier just to do that. And it squeezes it, and if I click OK, now you can see quite a few weeks in one screen, which I find pretty helpful. You go much below 50-55%, that cuts off the days. So I can see very clearly, I can see 6 working days of float. I can see the weekends in there, and I can see 6 working days of float. Maybe, you know what, I'm going to just format this to make the text a little bit bigger for you as well. I'm going to go format, textiles. Oh, it is already at 14. It's not too bad, but maybe we'll go to 16 so you can see a little better. There, the text is a little bigger, and I'll just squeeze that a little bit so you can see. All right, so I've got 5 days, 6 days, right, of float. The other screen, I could see how much float I've got because it's important to know when you're trying to figure out resources and you've got an over allocation, what you want to do. So I could see my float also visually if I just click on the square icon box and I go to the schedule screen. It's all about being able to flip between screens and feel comfortable doing that. So there, now I'm in the schedule screen and I can pull this out and there's my float. So it gives me what my particular float is. And see, look, I made a mistake. I was just counting to this. I actually have even more float. Sometimes if you're not paying attention to where the link goes, you might make a mistake. That's why it's useful to actually look at the float. This has even more float than I thought, right? So this could take longer and it wouldn't be a very big deal for us at all. The other thing, you know, I could even have this adjusted a number of different ways so that when this finishes, maybe I change this to a start to start as an example. So maybe I say that so many days after this activity starts, this one would start, so it pushes it out over here somewhere. The other thing, seeing I have 4 laborers available, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I also have 1 assigned to the whole project. Maybe I just reduce this to 1 labor. So change the assignment. How do I do that? I just click on the task. And you could do this several ways, but I'm just going to do it the way I've been showing you in the previous video. Assign resources. I'm going to go down here where it says laborers, and I'm going to say 1 labor. So I'm going to change that to 1 labor. And you see how it doubled that out? And you see how it got rid of my over allocation. But it also did something else. And that's what it's warning me of. It changed the duration. So let me just undo that. See, there we go. So I just undid that. So let's take a look here. I'm going to go back to my actual entry screen so you can see that. And you can see all the over allocations in the indicator column. The indicator column is your friend. It tells you what's going on with stuff. And so I've clicked on this. It takes 4 days, 200%, because I didn't go over this in the last video, I don't think. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to go to 100%. Watch what happens. This cost is going to stay the same, but this duration is going to double. 8 days. My over allocations disappeared because now I only have 1, 2, 3 plus the laborer on the top, right? We've got the labor assigned to the overall project on the top, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've only got 4 assigned, whereas I had 5. That was what was causing me that over allocation. I know that I have 4 available, so that's not an issue. So I said, well, why do I need to have 2 working on this? If it's not something that, you know, they're moving or carrying that you need an extra labor, then that would be fine to do. So you're always looking at what makes sense and analyzing and where there's opportunities to move things out and how much flexibility you have before it delays the project. In this case, it didn't. I still have quite a bit of flexibility. So I think in this case now I actually have 7 days of float. So if I went back to that schedule screen and I looked at it, it should say 7 days. Right now I'm counting it right because I've noticed where it's going up to before I thought it was going to there. Okay, so that's really how you can change over allocations and that aspect with the actual assignments that you've made. But just to make sure everybody's clear on assigning the resources that you want, like I said, I assigned a resource to the top activity. So I'll go back to that entry screen so you can see that. And we assigned that, and that had that impact. It's this changing of the number of resources that you have assigned on something. That's called effort-driven scheduling. So Microsoft Project, it will change the durations when you change the allocations on a resource that you already assigned. So if I added another resource here, so if I said this one laborers, I now want 200%, that should be changing this down to 5 days, right? So that should be changing that down to 5 days. It shouldn't change my price because it's really the same amount of hours that are working, right? So it changed it to 5 days, but then of course I've got that same problem occurring with over allocations. It did change my what was critical. The other thing you should know when you do those kind of changes, it actually, if it shortens the overall project and I've got people assigned to the overall project, the summary task, if they're there shorter, then it lowers the cost because it's a variable cost. If they're there longer, then it raises the cost. That's why I'm doing this very sort of simple example, because you can play with it. You can try it yourself, and it's very easy numbers. And you say, oh, why did it do that? Why did it do that? And you can do kind of sensitivity as you're learning to figure it out, what's going on. So, of course, if I really wanted to say I want that many resources, but I don't want it to be shorter, I could just go in and say 10 days. But then that's going to double my cost because now I've got all of these laborers, these 2 laborers, instead of just being there 5 days, they're there 10 days. It's going to double their cost. So I could just change that back if I didn't assign enough to begin with, and then I could have it double the cost. So if I go 10, right, and I go back there, then it's doubled their cost. And I've still got this over allocation. Maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this down to 100%, so I get rid of the over allocation, right? And then I'm going to change this to 10 days. Keep it at 10 days. That's what I want at the end of the day. So now it should be back to the $6,400 that I had. And this is just flagging me to warn me that it's been changing cost and back and forth. So I'll close this right now. I want to go just again to show you how I applied the drywall per square foot, just so that you have a handle on that. So like say task 7, Again, I would go to assign resources. If I wanted more drywall for some reason per square foot, because I made that a material, I just say how many square feet I want. So if I want 1,000 square feet, I just type in 1,000 on the task I want it assigned. You got to be careful that you're on the task you want it assigned. And then it'll say $500, 50 cents a square foot, 1,000 square feet, $500. And you've got it. And that's done at that point. And the drywall sub, if I wanted to assign them to this, and I'm paying them a certain amount when they finish this activity, then I could put, say, 10, I could put in here under cost. It won't let me type units. And it's like, oh, why won't it let me? Because you didn't make it a material or work. But if I made it a cost, it'll allow me to put in cost straight away. So if you ever find that it won't let you enter something, think, how did I set this up in the resource sheet? That's why it won't let me enter stuff in that column. So don't spend hours trying to figure that out. Click assign, and now I've got $10,000 assigned to this particular activity. And I've got $500 for the drywall assigned. So that's great. I could close this. I could go to my cost screen, click on the square icon box, go to cost, and my total costs are being summarized. These all should add up to this, including, though, you got to add in what you assign to the actual top. So this won't, in my case, add up to exactly this, because don't forget we had on the entry view, we had the site super, the whole project, we had the PM and the laborers. So it would end up being short that amount of money, right? So the other costs would add up to short this amount from that final cost that it actually had. 88,980 minus the site super, minus the project manager, minus the laborer's cost. Now, if I wanted to see how much did I assign to each one of them now, then I can go see in a different screen. See, this is what I'm saying. Getting used to going between the different screens is important. So you slide to the left, you go down to the resource sheet. Click on the resource sheet. Now, guess what? The resource sheet has a bunch of views too. So there's the square icon box in the resource sheet. And if you right click on it, there's a cost box. Go to the cost. Now I can see what I assigned to each one, right? To each one. And these two have that sort of bluish sort of shading on it because that's what's just changed, what I just did. Remember, I added that drywall sub cost to that last activity. Well, this is the total of all the drywall subs costs on the whole project. So if I assigned it 10 times in different spots, it will show up as the total here, right? So that's very helpful later on when we set a baseline and we start monitoring the projects. We want to see who's costing more, who's costing less, where we're winning, where we're losing, what we can do about it as the project proceeds. So it gives us really good feedback information. The other screen that I showed you earlier, sliding to the left, and just don't forget, that's a square icon box. If you come back here and it's like, what happened to where I enter stuff? Click on the square icon box, slow it down, go to entry view, just like you do in the other screen with the Gantt chart. And this is where I can add more resources. You just got to remember, which screen am I in? I'm going to slide to the left. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go down to the left here. I've got a bunch of pop-ups coming up. Slide to the left, go down, and I'm going to pick on resource usage again. So the resource usage screen. I don't have any over allocations because the indicator column shows that. And then I can see the work. I can see where people are working and how many hours throughout the project. I can go to a particular task if I wanted to. I could just click on it, go to the task tab and go scroll to task and it'll bring that one up. So I'll do that again. You know, I want to see where I assigned to task 7, right? The drywall, 1,000 square feet. So then I could just click on the task tab. The scroll to task is nice because it'll just bring that date up to you, that task, that when that's occurring, and you can see it. Now you notice it says 200, 200, 200, 200, 200. So it's kind of done that in a spread out way with the material. It's assuming that that's going to be installed that way. Cost-wise, we're not too sure about costs on these items. I don't see costs. I only see hours of work. It won't show me on subcontractors' hours of work because I put them down as a cost. I'm not monitoring them by the cost. Anything I want to monitor by the hour, like people that work for me, then I should have them down as work, right? So it doesn't show me what I've got as costs. See, I didn't put them as work, so it doesn't show that. If I right click here though, and you'll see that there's a bunch of other things I can show on this screen, right? And so I'm going to go to where it shows cost. And now I can actually see the cost, how that is being calculated and shown on my project. So this is how much it's costing every day for the site super throughout the project. This is how much it's on the summary task. We've got laborers, right? And so on this particular date, this is what it's costing for those laborers, right? So on the summary task, we assign the laborers, one laborer, this labor, that labor on this particular date. So I can see what things are costing and what work is going on at particular dates when I set it up this way, which is nice. And if I don't want to see work, I just want to look at cost for now, I can set it up that all I see is just the cost. If I want to see both, I just right click over any of these with my mouse or right click on the tab on a laptop, and then you can see both of them in that screen and where your costs are and what's it's associated. Now, how the costs are shown depends how you put it into the resource sheet. So for example, the laborers is showing prorated. These are all showing prorated, the costs. If I slide to the left and I go back to my resource sheet, right? And I said that I want to have the laborers, right, accrue at the start, right? The start. Then I'm going to see some of them are going to be quite high. Like on the summary task, it's going to be quite high at the start of the project. So I'm just going to slide to the left and I'm going to go back to that resource usage, right? And so I go to the summary task and I go back here, back. You see how it's 0000. And then all of a sudden I've got 16,400, right? For the laborers that are occurring. Well, actually, that's earlier than I'm saying there. So let's just go back. Let's go on the summary task. Go on the summary task. And I'm just going to click on, well, just go back to the beginning. I forget where I started this project. There it is. All right. So there's nothing before here. You notice on the first day, it's got 16,400. 16,400. And then I'm not paying anything for the rest of the project because I paid them all on the first day. That's got to do with the resource sheet and how I put the money. I said that they're going to get paid at the beginning of where it's assigned. So I assigned one labor to the whole project, which was 16,400. We're paying at the beginning. If I put it at the end, then that labor, if I go back, and I go back to that resource usage, right? And I slide up here and I go to the labor on the summary task. If I go towards the end of the project, right? They don't get paid till the end, right? So they don't get paid till the end. I highly doubt they're going to work for you for all that time and not get paid anything. So how you put it should be how you plan to pay that money out, which is important. And that makes a significant difference in how it shows up. So that's why I was saying, you think about it, how am I going to pay this out? Well, I'm going to pay them out prorated. Now, if it's a subcontractor, I don't want to pay them till the end of their activity, not the end of the project, but the end of when they do something. I just assign the money for how I intend to do it. So again, I could go back to the resource usage and I could look at people that I had as like a subcontractor, right? And I'll see it periodically, like I'll see it on this date. That would be at the end of, so let's say we pick a particular task. Task 7, at the end of task 7, they're getting paid $10,000, right? And when they finish task 7, I think I only assigned them to one other, which was task 1, which is back here. When they finish task 1, I'm paying them $5,000. So how they get paid according to what they do, which is real world. And it's kind of matches in construction world. We have what we call schedule of values. You try to match it closely to what you valued the work at, and so that you've agreed upon paying the money out at those periods of time. So that's a little bit more into the adding of costs and adding of resources onto your project. If that was a little bit fast for you, go back and watch the previous video that I did. And again, the link will be in the show notes. And click subscriptions, go to the playlist and look for MS Project. I've got much more advanced ones than this as well that you can watch, especially on the Microsoft Project Made Easy ones, some pretty specialized ones, but I'm growing this particular one as we go week to week as well. So hopefully that's giving you a good insight into that. And remember, it's about, which screen am I in and being able to move around, go back to the entry screen from the cost screen. Slowly, you'll get it. So I'm Tom Stephenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.